welcome to the Core Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rawls. On this podcast, you'll hear the stories and experiences of entrepreneurs and leaders in the outdoor industry. In these conversations, we'll discuss insights and actionable strategies to give you knowledge and inspiration to navigate your journey of entrepreneurship in the outdoor industry. This podcast is brought to you by CORE, the Kootenay Outdoor Recreation Enterprise. CORE is a nonprofit organization based in the Kootenay region of British Columbia. CORE's mission is to support the growing network of gear and apparel makers, designers, and entrepreneurs in the Kootenays. We're typically speaking with outdoor industry folks on this podcast, but this one is a little different. I wanted to have this conversation with Ryan Popov because he has a wealth of knowledge about growing an e-commerce business. Ryan is the founder of Popov Leather, a handmade leather goods company based here in Nelson, British Columbia. If you're interested in learning more about the do's and don'ts of e-commerce, you'll get a lot out of this episode. We talk about the early days when Ryan was working a full-time job and running Popov on nights and weekends, and what it took to go full-time in the business. We learn about the critical hire that Ryan made that set Popov up for serious revenue growth. Ryan gives his suggestion of where to start with e-commerce marketing, the most important automated email flows your site needs, how he runs his meta ads, and how he's gathered over 10,000 reviews from customers. This is a conversation that I've wanted to have with Ryan for a very long time, and I was making notes throughout it. He's very generous with what he's learned. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Ryan Popov as much as I did. Hey, Ryan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I've had these list of questions here that I've had in front of me for a long time because from my perspective, I've been watching Popov for years, and it's been pretty awesome to watch you grow. And from somebody who runs an e-commerce business, I'm always admiring the work that you do. So this conversation is as much for my benefit and pleasure than it is for anybody else's. So thanks so much for doing it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, like I said before we started this, I like talking about myself, so it's pretty easy.
Nice, perfect. You come to the right place. So Popov has been around for 11 years.
Yeah,
is that right? You're 11 years.
As of next Friday, March 1st, it'll be 11 years.
Wow. And I remember seeing something in 2023 that said you'd shipped over 100,000 Shopify orders. What is that number at right now?
Yeah, I think we're at 120 now, something like that. Who did I see? I think I saw Shoes for the Soul or one of the shoe businesses in town here that do quite well. And they had a little Shopify award. And I was like, I want one of those things. We got to be somewhere near that. So I actually had to reach out to Shopify and be like, hey, are we close to this target? And they're like, oh yeah, you guys should have got one of those awards a while ago. And they sent us one. It's this heavy, I don't know what it's made out of. It's solid metal little bag, like their logo. And yeah, it sits on my desk. It's really cool.
That's awesome. But you had to, it's a bummer you had to ask for it, but
yeah.
Good on you for asking.
Actually, I've learned being in business, most of the awards that are given out are because you actively trying to get them. Like even like the BC Business Awards, you have to try really hard. It's not something that people just give you as a merit. You actually have to go through all these trials and tribulations to become nominated, and then it's interesting. Business world's interesting.
Welcome to entrepreneurship, where you have to work for even the awards.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's crazy. Just give us a little bit of background for those who don't know about the world of Popov Leather. Just give me the background of the products you make and what the workshop looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So this all started as a hobby. It was kind of like this thing I was doing in the evening. I'd graduated art school like 12 years ago, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I had a crappy day job, and I was just sort of generally unhappy, and I kind of needed to take my mind off it. So I found that leather work was sort of this sculptural thing that I really clung to, and I became obsessed with it. Like most entrepreneurs, they kind of chase this shiny object, like it's either it's a new app or it's a whatever. So I had this like kind of built into me from the start, and I was really chasing this hobby, like getting really into it, like watching YouTube and getting into forums and just obsessing over it, and just kind of burning myself out trying to figure out this wallet. And so I created this wallet that I always wanted, and Jill said, hey, you should put that up on Etsy. And so I did. And kind of fast forward to today, a lot of people really like that wallet, and we built a business out of it. And right now we're operating in a workshop with, I think, 22 full-time employees right now. We have a day shift and a night shift, and I think we're shipping about 100 orders a day right now. And yeah, I kind of went from this dining room table, the classic entrepreneur story, starting at a dining room table. And, we decided to, instead of treating it like a hobby, just learn to treat it like a business. And I didn't have any business background or anything. I just kind of learned as we went.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Good for you. Congrats,
Thanks.
by the way. But was there a catalyst moment that took you to like, okay, yeah, this is serious and I'm going to get into it? Like, what was that catalyst moment for you?
Yeah, for sure. So, treating it like a business, really focusing on getting sales and stuff. I think what really interested me after I kind of, I built that wallet and things, it's like, okay, well, I've done this. How can I sort of take this to the next level? And that was, putting it on Etsy, and then all of a sudden being validated by complete strangers, paying you money for your product. And I think that was the initial spark. It was like, oh, okay. People really like this. How far can I push this? And, there's a lot of catalysts along the way, and being paid, I think, is the biggest one. So, we got to a point where I was making as much selling wallets on Etsy as I was at my day job. And that.
How long did that take to get to that point?
I'd say about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And this was like, 8 hours at my day job and then 8 to 12 hours at home during the evenings, whatever that was. I get like 4 hours of sleep every night. But that's wow. Like the hustler, like I don't subscribe to any of the e-commerce people on Twitter and all that stuff, but there's that whole culture out there of grinding and doing all that stuff. And honestly, it was like me and Jill doing that every night. So, I don't think the business could have gotten as far as it has without Jill, being there with me.
That's your wife?
Yeah, Jill's my wife. And yeah, so I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought, but I guess the catalyst was first, being paid for a product and kind of proving that idea. And then the second catalyst was making enough to sort of supplant my day job, and then, making that decision to fully dive in and focus on it.
Yeah, you've gone through this obvious transition that from maker to manager, and I think that's something that, some people are fortunate to be able to make that shift from making every product themselves to, managing those who are making it. I think that's a fortunate. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily always happen. But what was that like for you? What's that been like for you? What was it like hiring the first few people, and then, now that you're at serious 2 shifts a day scale, what are the big takeaways that you've learned through that process of turning into the manager?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of hard decisions. But I think the turning point for hiring someone was actually just sort of thrust upon us. It wasn't a decision that took a lot of thought. It was just Jill having our first child and not being able to help me. So I was like, uh-oh.
You lost an employee.
I was like, oh, geez. Okay, what do we do? And so I had to hire someone. And again, no background, no HR skills, nothing. I just was just thrust into this role of hiring someone. And then as soon as you do that, then you kind of see these opportunities open up in front of you. It's like, oh, okay, I don't actually have to be here hammering these holes in the wall, and I can, maybe spend more time marketing or spend more time product development. And that's kind of what I did. And, all of a sudden you create these new areas of revenue for your website, and then it kind of snowballs into hiring more people and, all the fun stuff that comes with having a whole crew.
Are there some employee number, like, were there levels of growth that, let's say, you hit 3 people and then you hit 6 people? Are there levels of growth that, I don't want to say were easier than the others, but that came more naturally, and that have helped propel? Like, was there a sweet spot in there where you're like, okay, once we got to this number of employees, things really started to go in a different direction because of that? Like, have there been different kind of high points or plateaus throughout the process of growing?
That's kind of a tough one to sort of answer, because I was so busy just managing the business and just kind of putting my head down and trying to figure things out almost up until like a couple of years ago, where I was just hiring people to help us get orders at the door without giving any thoughts to efficiency or scaling or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to meet customer demand, and the only way I knew how was throwing more hands basically in our products.
I know you've gone through some different programs to bring in some help to sort things out from an efficiency standpoint. Can you talk about a little bit about those and kind of what the catalyst has been like, and kind of the high points of that process of really, what's the saying, working on your business and not in your business?
Yeah, exactly. I think that light bulb kind of flicked on when we participated in the Rev Up accelerator program, so the non-tech accelerator program through Columbia Basin Trust. And so essentially what that is you have a panel of business advisors who are, you know, well versed and well experienced and all that jazz, and you come to them with problems. So for our focus, they said, okay, bring 3 things that you really wanted to work on, and we'll help you do it. And one was understanding accounting, you know, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and all that stuff. So that was one area. The other one was, am I profitable? And the third was taking all the operations off my shoulders so I could focus on the stuff that I was good at or wanted to become good at, which was marketing. And that was a huge catalyst. In fact, I think that probably revolutionized and changed our business beyond ways that I could have done by myself. And so out of that process, the big one was taking the operations off my shoulders. So like you said, working in the business versus working on the business. So I wanted to be working on the business and growing it. And out of that process, we had hired Bob, who's our operations manager. He used to be the plant manager at Pacific Insight. And it had just shut down as we started doing this project, and he was looking for a job, and it just kind of worked perfectly. And he brought his sort of automotive manufacturing experience to the leather goods world, which is pretty amazing. So we're talking things like Kanban,
Lucky you,
just in time, you know, ordering and manufacturing and all that stuff. So, you know, prior to Bob being on board, we were, you know, a good day was, you know, you'd place an order and we would ship within 2 weeks. That was good. Like that was what I was aspiring to be. And now it's like 1 to 3 days. You know, you order on the website, you get this custom leather product in the mail, and usually it's like the same day. Like we have, like, it's just amazing. And you know, some of those problems where we're trying to meet customer demand, my thought again was, you know, throw a bunch of hands at it, but he brought the efficiency to our workshop, so that now it's like, no, we don't need to throw more hands at it. We have to look at it from, you know, all these different perspectives and ways to meet the challenge without, you know, just throwing more cogs in the machine kind of thing. So that's helped us a lot, like beyond anything.
That's amazing. God bless Bob.
Yeah, yeah, he can never leave. I've told him that a number of times. Like, you can't quit.
He's got you over the barrel now. That's amazing. I want to go back to the thing you said about being able to work on the things that you're good at and what you want to work on, and that's marketing. I want to get to that in a second, but having those efficiencies that Bob brought into the system, did that allow you to get more profitable, or so it's more profitable, but then did it allow you to scale the business from a revenue standpoint, in the sense of like, now you just have more opportunities, like, oh, we can add this product, we can add that product, we can add this product.
Yeah, so anything you can think of in your mind is exactly what happened. I have a chart. We did a presentation recently. It was like with our crew, we do like an annual sort of year in review kind of thing. And one of the charts was actually, wait, when did I do that? I can't remember who I did. I did a presentation for someone, and one of the charts was, oh, actually, you know what? It was the none of this is important. Anyways, it was a presentation.
Doesn't matter.
I think maybe you had watched it. It was for
Expert Navigator.
yeah, it was for Expert Navigator. That's right. Yeah, and one of the charts was, you know, what important hire transformed your business, and there was this um, bar chart or line chart that showed our revenue growth, and it was kind of like going up, 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 and then as soon as we hired Bob, then it was like exponentially up. And that's exactly what happens when you hire someone who's a lot smarter than you, who has all this expertise when it comes to your business. And um, one of the big things that happened was all of a sudden, you know, we're fulfilling orders a lot faster. So customers are coming to our website and they're seeing, you know, 1 to 5 business days to get an order. It's like awesome, because our product is a very giftable product. It's not usually something someone will buy for themselves unless they're really, you know, well off or whatever. But, you know, Q4 is our big time. And if we can get products off the shelf within, you know, a certain amount of time, people are more likely to be buying from you, especially people who are last minute shoppers and things like that. And so, you know, you go from this 1 to 2 week turnaround time to 1 to 5 days, and all of a sudden your product, which is comparable to a lot of other small leather goods manufacturers, is all of a sudden a lot more desirable because they're going to get a lot faster. And then other things like, you know, just efficiencies of scale. So looking at our wallets, they're all hand sewn. You know, one of the things that we've done recently is we've increased the spacing between the holes by 1 millimeter. And this was his, one of his ideas. And so like all of a sudden wallets are 20% more efficient to make. And so if you make, you know, 15,000 wallets in a year and gain 20% efficiency, you can sell them at the same price, but you're that much more profitable. And again, you go back to throwing a bunch of hands in a workshop. All of a sudden, you need 20% less hands to sew the same amount of wallets. And so little bits and pieces like that, all throughout the workshop, not just making products, but the way it's laid out, the machines that we bring in, just everything has been just insane since we hired him. And the other thing is, like, I don't know if I would have ever gotten to this point on my own without Bob, because, you know, before Bob, I was managing operations and marketing, and it's a lot. Even now, like, I don't know how I did any of that with the stuff I'm doing now. It's insane. So,
you slept 4 hours, I think.
What's that?
You only slept for 4 hours.
Yeah, there you go. And now with 2 young children running around, it's even harder, right? I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned growing the business and through RevUp has taught me to make those scary hires. So like when I hired Bob, his salary was like $40,000 more than what I was making, and that scared me. But it's paid dividends beyond my wildest imagination. So, it's crazy.
I mean, going back to that's the work smarter, not harder mentality, exactly. And that usually gets you ahead in life.
And making the right hire is key. So making sure that it is the right person for the right role. There's a lot that goes. And I think another phrase is like hire slow, fire fast. And I think that's another important one for a lot of.
Yeah, that's certainly a tough one.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a whole nother podcast. Because what I really want to talk to you about, is what you spend your time doing now, which I think I said this before we started recording. I think you're a master at it from the outside. I mean, you may not feel like it because you're still in the midst of it, but I would encourage everybody listening to go check out popovleather.com, scroll that homepage, and that is a masterclass in how to run a effective homepage for an e-commerce site. It's I would love to go through like each one of those segments, like the hero images and the collections, the social proof, like the video reviews. Like you have all of these things, and the way you lay it out, I can tell that you've spent a lot of time and energy learning how to do these things. And so I really want to pick your brain about kind of the e-commerce and the growth practices that you have implemented at Popov over the last, to get you at 120,000 Shopify orders is no small feat. So I guess the first question is what are the key metrics that you look at for your website? Like, what are the kind of the key fundamentals that you're kind of studying on a monthly basis or a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few depending on what lens you're looking through. So for me, a big thing right now is customer acquisition, like new customers, and I'm heavy on the Facebook side of things with that. We went through a big exercise last year, kind of looking at what's bringing in more traffic. And for us, our top of funnel or brand awareness is all coming from Facebook and Instagram, like all of it. And prior to me sort of taking a really hard look at it, I always just assumed it was Google. We had the Performance Max and shopping campaigns and all that stuff. And of course, Google's saying, hey, you're doing great, spend more money and get more customers. And that's kind of what we were doing, but I felt like we were treading water, and I just abandoned Facebook completely. And then I went over to Facebook and started doing that. But to answer your question, when I'm looking at Facebook and I'm looking at our website, one of the biggest things, and Google for that matter, one of the biggest sort of North Star metrics is MER, which is our marketing efficiency ratio. So looking at how much we spend in a day versus what our top line revenue looks like. And it's kind of like this basic metric, but it allows me to sort of control our spend, because it all kind of trickles down to net profit, and net profit's the biggest thing that I care about, but that typically doesn't come out in the wash until, I see my P&L, once a month. But in the meantime, like during the day, like during the week or anytime during the day, I can look at our marketing efficiency ratio and go, okay, I'm spending too much, or, hey, I can maybe put my foot on the gas a little bit and generate more revenue. Because I know at the end of the day, if we're at a certain percentage, so like just to give you an idea, anything, in my opinion, over 15%, if your marketing efficiency ratio is more than 15%, you're spending too much. Anything under 10%, you can spend more. It's, for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically what you're spending on ads overall. So like take your Google, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, add it together and then divide that by your revenue, or your revenue divided by that, and you get a percentage. And that's basically something I look at every day. And then of course, top line revenue, I have an idea, like, if we're making a certain amount of money, we're doing good. If not, then maybe I need to panic a little bit. What else? Customer acquisition costs. So Facebook's really good at telling you how much you're spending per conversion. If we're, I look at different things depending on what I want to do. So if I'm looking at how our ads are performing overall, or our marketing spend overall, I look at MER, I look at top line revenue. If I'm looking at, our ad sets or ads, or which ones are doing really well, which ones are doing poorly, I look at how much it costs to earn a conversion. For a while I was telling Facebook, get us conversions at $30 per sale or whatever. And I thought that was okay. That's kind of our break even. But I've noticed something recently, like if we have a sale or a special event, our customer acquisition cost is like slashed in half. So that's kind of like an interesting thing. And then you have to sort of balance, should I be spending more on ads during this time? Is it profitable? And there's so many things you can look at on a daily basis, depending on what you want to do. There's just no shortage of statistics and stats and all these things. It just depends on what you want to do. And then the other big one is like conversion rates. So, for every 100 customers that come to your site, how many are actually pulling the trigger? And for us at our price point, 1.5 to 2% is good. Again, when we're having sales, we're seeing things like 3 and 4%, which is awesome. Which makes me kind of think I want to do more sales and all that fun stuff. But that's a whole other, again, podcast about marketing.
Sure. No, I'm going to talk about sales because I have a very specific question about sales I'm really interested in. If you could point people in one direction or a couple of directions of like, hey, this is where I learned a lot about how to run ads and these metrics and stuff. Is there kind of a resource that you would recommend for people to check out that they can kind of sponge up some of this knowledge?
I think you can learn a lot of things through word of mouth. I hate to say it, because there's a forum that I'm a part of, e-commerce fuel. It's like a private forum or whatever. You can sign up and pay a membership, and it's worth it. I've been a member for probably about 6 or 7 years now. But honestly, I learned everything from there, like just other store owners trying things and what's working for them and what's not. I imagine YouTube has a bunch of stuff, but again, you have to kind of wade through those marketing agencies and things like that. Like if it's an agency giving you advice, I would take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, there's a caveat.
Talk to other people who are running businesses. Like, talk to me. I'm always happy to talk about what's working. I can go quite in depth on that kind of stuff and what's working really well.
Sure.
But as far as resources, that Facebook changes so often. There's a big seismic shift when iOS, I think 14 came out, and all of a sudden you can't, see who's clicking on your ads and things. So everything, of course, changed then. But it's just changing so much that it's hard to really pinpoint. I'm at the point now where I just go, okay, this is how much I want to spend. This is how much I want to acquire customer for it. Can you just do it, kind of thing? Like, things are getting so technically sophisticated with Facebook and Google. You can just tell them, this is how much I want to spend. But then, of course, do you trust the platforms? And the data they're giving you, and that's a whole other ball of wax. Yeah. It's hard to know.
Sure. The e-commerce fuel podcast is free, and it is a really good resource as well. Yeah, to get into the forum itself, you have to pay and qualify, but e-commerce fuel, the podcast it can be very helpful. There's also like Shopify Masters and the unofficial Shopify podcast that are all pretty good at being able to like soak up some all the way from basic to into the weeds information. I mean, obviously paying Meta for ads to get traffic to your site is super important. What are the things that you do from a retention standpoint? So once a customer enters the funnel, you've paid to get them there, hopefully you've converted them and got some money from them. What do you do after that to kind of keep them in the family and keep them coming back for more?
That's a good question. I was looking at our stats last night, and we have a 30% return rate on our customers. So that's kind of unusual, especially in a brand that is selling products that are supposed to last a lifetime. Well, that do last a lifetime, and we repair and replace and do all that stuff for free. And so then you look at your stats and you're like, whoa, okay, why are people coming back? Well, for us, it's because we have an awesome product, first of all. So they take the leap, they buy something that they like. But then what I'm seeing is people come back and they'll buy a matching belt, or they'll buy a matching watch strap, matching book cover. I had a guy come in from Trail the other day. He's bought every single color of belt we've ever released. He's like a Popov Leather super fan, works for tech. So people will collect different colors. They'll come back for limited edition drops. And I think it's that initial spark and that quality that they get in the mail the first time. And then they go, oh, okay, let's get more of this kind of stuff. Or they're telling their friends, or they're buying gifts for, their wife or, friends for Christmas. Like I said earlier, what we sell is a very giftable, thoughtful type of item. And so we have a lot of people buying gifts after they initially get something for themselves or receive something for themselves. And so that in itself is one way we keep people coming back. The other is, of course, email marketing, win back campaigns. So after 90 days is a typical time we'll email people who have bought from us and say, hey, come check out what's new. And we'll drum up some interest that way. And we also have a loyalty program so people can earn points for purchases and then redeem those, like your typical loyalty thing. I'll always try to stay top of mind with customers. I think that's really important as well. And that's kind of where email marketing comes in mostly. is staying top of mind with customers, whether it's a new blog post or a sale or, just getting feedback from customers, making them feel important, because they are. Like, I'll send surveys every once in a while and just be like, hey, kind of curious about your thoughts on a direction we're thinking of going in, and just including people.
I'm on your email list, and I always appreciate the different. You do a good job of varying them. Actually, you're the one who really turned me on to using HTML emails as plain text emails. You started doing this a couple years ago, and I was like, dang, that actually hits very different. And we started to use that in our own campaigns, and it's shocking. The response rate and the click through rate on those plain text emails is good.
What I really like about the plain text emails is that they're so disruptive. It's like so unexpected to get this email that feels genuine, so like you're more likely to really engage with that kind of stuff. But the trick is not to use it too often. So we have a lot of our standard emails are typically just like a picture and a call to action, but every once in a while we'll do the plain text if it's something really important.
Yeah. And just with like the very subtle hyperlink at the bottom or wherever it is, it's like, I love those. They're always pretty sneaky and effective. Talk to me about so email, you're using Klaviyo to set up your emails. And so for somebody who's brand new into e-commerce and there's so many moving parts, and you have this great history and thankfully a good staff to help you be able to juggle all the other balls that are in the air. A lot of our core members and listeners are kind of early stage solopreneurs. What do you think are the most important kind of early steps to get your email marketing set up? Because if you're paying to get customers to your site, or you're working hard at upping your SEO game, and anyway, you're bringing people in, but then getting lucky enough to capture their email address. What are the first kind of important flows that you think we should all be looking at to set up for our stores in the early days?
Oh yeah, for sure. So Klaviyo is awesome for this kind of stuff, because they actually have a library of flows already set up for you. So you go into their library and you just kind of cherry pick the ones you like and just kind of style the emails. But the biggest ones are always sort of the abandoned carts, the view product, and we just implemented a site abandon. So anytime like a customer comes to your site and expresses interest in a certain type of product, I think the most important sequence is like the abandoned cart. So they were almost ready to make that purchase, but something stopped them. And usually it's, someone on a bus on their phone looking at your website, and they add it to the cart, and there stops here. So they leave, and then they totally forget about what's going on. Or maybe they're at home and a doorbell rings, and, they're just on the way to do something else they're about to purchase. So a lot of the times they get that reminder email and they go, oh yeah, I was going to do that. And those are our top revenue generating email flows, and it's all automatic. Like it's so easy. And I think every time we send one of those out, we make $1. I think it's $1 per email or something like that, based on, revenue per recipient. I think Klaviyo gives you that stat. So that's the top generating one. And then the view product. So they didn't add it to the cart, but they looked at this particular product. So then you send them an email with a picture of that product or talking about that product. And maybe you incentivize that purchase. You go, okay, hey, you were looking at this, just because it's you, here's 10% off, and then come make that purchase. And then, so that's our second. And then welcome series. So if you have a product that is maybe needs a little bit of education, maybe you need to warm up your audience a little bit, you can send them a welcome flow, which kind of talks about your brand. Wait a few days, talk about the product. Wait a few days, talk about the reviews you've gotten, and so on and so forth. So that's, I think, the next really important one. But there's tons. There's so many different things depending on what people are doing. You can.
Yeah, but it's good to gotta have the top three to start with, and because everybody's got limited time, and you're spinning a lot of plates as a solopreneur. So how do you pick where are you going to get the highest reward or return on invested time?
I think those ones are the highest return for sure.
How do you view the difference between there's an obvious difference between abandoned cart and abandoned checkout. Do you focus on the abandoned cart over the abandoned checkout?
Actually, we do both. Yeah, I forgot about checkout. So, Yeah, there's a sequence for all three or
Right.
four different types of abandonment, and Klaviyo has them all.
Right. And just to be clear, like you're emailing them, you're capable of emailing them because they have already submitted their
Yeah,
email address to you some way, either through the shop app or through the agree
yeah,
to, they've handed over their
yeah.
email address to you. You're not sneakily
No,
emailing them.
and there are, and I am guilty of looking at these types of services, but I believe they're illegal in Canada. They're widely available in the States. So like if you go to any well-known retailer, it's like, oh, there's no pop-up here. This is weird. Because it's very common, and you kind of like look around their site and then leave, and then all of a sudden you get an email later from that brand, and it's like, I never gave you guys my email. This is so strange. And there are actually companies out there. I think retention.com, and there's another one that's been emailing me. But essentially, they collect email addresses through. I don't even know how they do it, but they track
Hmm.
you somehow, and then it's legal in the States. They can just email you and do whatever they want. But we have tougher regulations in Canada, so
Thankfully.
can't do that here.
I mean, and it's, if you're building a brand, maybe it's one thing if you're, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but if you're a big box
Mm-hmm.
store and you just kind of spray and pray with your marketing, then maybe that works for you. But when you're building a brand and, as the founder, you're signing your name at the
Yeah,
end of emails, that doesn't
no,
really
and
match very
and
well with the
then
brand
you get into
values.
that dangerous territory of having Gmail send all your emails to junk, and not having a clean list, and getting angry people, and it's at the end of the day, it is not a good way to build any sort of decent email list.
Do you use SMS text
Yep.
marketing at all?
We do. So we've been using it for a few years now, but I don't find the revenue generated versus the cost of SMS worth it. Like email is pretty
Sure.
cheap, but SMS is
Mm.
pricey. And the type of product that we have, people tend to think about and make their purchase at a later time. And I feel like SMS is more about sort of that impulse purchase, that low value, whatever that you buy on your phone and kind of carry on with your day, and there's no real consideration involved. Um, we've kind of been just treading water in terms of revenue versus cost, and we might just axe it in the future. And I think with our pop-ups, we do ask for it, and I think that might be a friction point for some people as well. So just having the email and not worrying about the phone numbers is probably the direction we'll head in the not too distant future.
I guess I wonder if it also applies to, and I'm only making an assumption that you may have a older
Mm-hmm.
demographic as a customer base that may SMS marketing just feels off to them. Whereas if you have a younger demographic as your target, SMS is
Yeah.
actually what they prefer. So they're gonna want to trade you that SMS, their number for the
Yeah,
incentives.
I agree with you on that one. You see a lot of sort of like fashion brands, like fast fashion, and like different apparel brands. And I think I've looked at different like accessory brands, but that are more geared to that younger demographic, and they hit the SMS pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it also could just be the CMOs of these e-commerce companies are just like throw it all
Yeah,
at the wall and see what we can get conversions
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yeah, not necessarily always the best route to go if you're trying to build a loyal customer base that's directly linked to the founder, which I think is kind of where we're
mm,
aiming at from our perspective. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about pop-ups. So these are the things on your website that sometimes as a consumer you're like
mm-hmm.
ugh, but as the store owner they can be very effective. What have you found to be the most effective way to set up your pop-ups in the sense of like what are you trading for that email address, and what have you tested to kind of come to that result or to come to that
Yeah,
decision?
we've used a lot of different pop-up providers, including Klaviyo's own sort of built-in version. And what I find is working best for us is always just trading a discount for an email, basically an instant sort of 10, 15, 20% off. And lately I've been testing the different offers. So like 10 versus 15 versus 20. And as expected, 20% is like you're 4% more likely to get someone signing up. Um, we've also tested, like last month, I tested doing a free item versus a discount. And it's so funny. just to give you an idea, like 10% will convert about, like 10% off would convert about like 7% of the people who come to the site. 15% would be like 9, and then 20% is somewhere up in like the 11%. So this is 11% of the people visiting get hit by the pop-up will give you an email. And then we tested doing a free like a free keychain basically with a purchase, and it was like 0.4% of the people. So like it was brutal. But that's the importance of testing, right? Because like you never know until you actually start doing it. So obviously that didn't work for us. So we're sticking with the discount thing. And right now we're using a third-party pop-up provider. I don't know what you call them. Service as a software pop-up provider.
App.
And they're called amped.io, amped.io. And they have these really nice looking full screen takeover type pop-ups, which are, typically annoying for the consumer, but they work, which is why you see them so often. And we convert quite well. So I think like on Klaviyo with the same type of offer, I think we're getting like 4% conversions, but with Amped for whatever reason, we're getting like, 10 to 11% opt-ins. So the more people you have on your list, the more revenue you're going to generate. Like with Klaviyo, it's like 40 to 50% of our monthly revenue. So it's really important to capture as many emails as we can, especially if you're throwing ad dollars at Facebook. You gotta really optimize that as much as you can. And Amped lets you do a lot of split testing, which is a lot easier than in Klaviyo. I found Klaviyo very clunky and cumbersome to try to do all that stuff. And what I really like about Amped is you can set up custom Shopify discount codes that are one use and are, depending on what kind of offer you do, you can then translate that into your flows where you have a variable. So you only need one flow, and it just kind of changes the wording a little bit. So Amped is working really well. We're going to stick with that. We might try to change up the offer where instead of incentivizing people through a discount code, we might talk about, doing a gift card giveaway and then just having a site-wide sort of discount in place. So my strategy right now to acquire new customers is to get that email and offer a discount, but I'm going to try to flip it on its head and just have a discount ready, but then incentivize further with a gift card or talk about our loyalty program instead. We'll see how it goes.
Nice. I think it's important to talk about. Yeah, you mentioned it. Like you're paying money to get eyeballs onto your site, whether you're paying Meta or Google Shopping ads or whatever you're paying them to get on your site. And the idea of getting them, the annoying pop-ups as we call them, the idea of annoying them one more time with that is that once you have their email address, you theoretically you can pay less or stop paying altogether to get their eyeballs back to your site. So you have a chance to keep them in the family and in the loop and keep selling to them over and over again, or keep them warm until you get to sell to them eventually. So that's the importance, that's the important part. And I think it's worth, and I would recommend people go and sign up for your welcome series and your flow, because what they're going to get out of it is a really good textbook case of like how to do it from a brand perspective. And I think that's the important thing to remember is that, somebody's giving you you're traded them a discount, or you're traded them free shipping, or you traded them whatever you've decided that is the incentive to take their email address. But then you have to treat that email address like gold in that sense and not abuse it, to give them, good information and to kind of warm them up and tell your story to them. And I think you guys do a really good job of that. Like, it's not annoying. It's very clear. Your imagery is really good. And I think that's, I go and sign up for people's email address, on people's pop-ups just to get their flows, just to kind of study them. And then I cancel them later on. And it's shocking sometimes how transactional everything feels. And it just leaves you with a really bad taste in your mouth as a consumer. So like, what is it that do you have a kind of a theory or a precedent that you like to set kind of in the tone and how you come at it from a brand perspective?
Yeah. I mean, when you see the results of emails that go out that don't, that aren't selling, that are just kind of like top of mind, like we'll write a blog post and then we'll send an email about it. It kind of shows you that it's more about staying top of mind and less about, trying to force a purchase or anything like that. like Ridge Wallets does a really good version of this, where they have the one mailing list where it's just like about their products, and then they have another set of emails that goes out where they talk about just like cool gadgets and gear that they've seen during the week, and that's it. There's no link to their homepage or anything. It's just I forget what it's called, but it's like brought to you by the Ridge or something like that, and they just talk about cool stuff, and they're staying top of mind. Like that's the whole strategy. It's you have this list, and you have people who know about you and know what you do. You don't have to hammer them over the head with every product that you have. You just talk about things you think are cool, or things you're doing, and behind the scenes, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's really just about staying top of mind, because people sign up for your email because they're interested in you. They just maybe need to be reminded once in a while that you're still out there.
That's interesting you bring up Ridge. Sean, who runs Ridge, is like that. He's a good follow on Twitter. He's a very opinionated dude with a lot of experience and skills. I think he runs like a 9-figure. I think he claims it's a 9-figure e-commerce site that he's bootstrapped himself, which is bonkers. I think there's something about having a rhythm and a cadence to the communication that you send out. And I think a really good example of this is Huckberry. Huckberry.com is more of a men's site for clothing and gear and stuff. But I think they send out maybe 2 or 3 emails a week, but they're so consistent, and they're so I think I bought one thing from them over the course of following them for years, but I open every single email because there's always a value that they throw in there, whether it's like link to an article or something super interesting, and they're always providing that kind of extra value beyond just getting you to shop. And I think that's super important. And it keeps me engaged and keeps me, talking about it. So I think the more you can add, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
You have this, I think your site, looked at your site the other day, and I think it was like over 10,000 reviews. Is that right? Over 10,000.
Yeah.
If you ship 120,000 Shopify orders, eventually you'll get to 10,000 reviews. But I know that takes work, and it's something you've thought a lot about and put a lot of time into. Talk to me about the importance of reviews, from your perspective and what they mean for your business. And then I'm really also interested, as a tag on question, is like text versus video reviews. Like your site, maybe more than I've seen on other people's sites. I think Popov is kind of a shining star for video reviews. So talk to me about how you capture them, how you think about them, and the importance of them to your platform.
So the first part of your question, how important reviews are to our business, I think they're absolutely integral. So, we built our business on word of mouth, and that kind of translates into, the literal word of mouth that we have on our website. So, people will tell their friends, but it's also important to show people who know nothing about us, what we're all about, and not just what we say we're about. And that kind of goes back to trust, which is, I think, one of the most important things when you're building any sort of business or brand or e-commerce site. You have to get people to trust that, 1, you're an actual company, 2, they're going to get the product that they see on their page, and 3, that they're going to be happy with it, which is, where the reviews kind of help, generate that expectation. And so, it's incredibly important, especially with a product with a high price point. It's like, there's all these thousands of other people who have actually purchased this. They paid this and they love it, and they're happy they did it. And this is why. And you can read all their reviews and things they like and actually things they don't like. So more important than the 5-star or the 1-stars. And to me, it shows authenticity, which is one of our core values. People can read the shitty reviews, and I'm okay with that. It's not always going to be a 5-star experience, and you can read why. But it's also a learning opportunity. So when we do get those 1-star reviews, I'll typically, post a public reply, but I'll also contact the reviewer, make things right, and tell them how we're going to learn from that experience and make our product better as a result of their feedback. And I'll include that in the public one as well. So, that's again where the trust comes from. It's like, we're not perfect. But if you go to a site with nothing but 5-star reviews, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And one of the unfortunate things for us is, most of our reviews are 5-star reviews. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here or anything, because, we have a great product that people like. And, it's very few and far between that we get the 1-star reviews, but they're there. You can find them. And then the second part of your question, the text versus the video, and how we collect them. So video, like with TikTok taking over, and we went from this era of Instagram with these beautiful photos to this era of TikTok where everything is more authentic, and I actually really like it. So people use their cell phones. It's not this overly produced thing. And then that kind of translates into people's expectations when they look at websites. And then all of a sudden they're seeing these videos, these real videos of people with their cell phones out, unscripted, talking about our product. And I think even more than reading reviews, this adds another layer of trust. It's like, okay, there's, you go to one of our belt pages and there's like 30 videos of just people talking about how much they love the product, and you can see them handle it. You can see them wearing it and just being really happy about it. And I love that. I love hearing people just talk about it. And it's so easy for people on their phone or their devices just to like kind of watch these videos and be persuaded by other folks talking about it. And so it took a really long time to kind of figure out how to generate these videos, because not everyone's gonna, like, it's very hard even just to ask someone just to record themselves, because like even doing this podcast, it's like I don't like looking at myself talking, and this person's going to take my video and show it to a million other people in ads and things like that. So what we do is we'll get a 5-star review from a customer, and then we'll send a follow-up email asking for 2 things. One, would you mind copying and pasting this on our Google business page as well? Because, it shows other customers that it's authentic, it's a third party, and things like that, and helps our business. And more often than not, people will do that. So that helps build our brand one way. And then the other question we say is like, hey, you really love our product. Would you mind recording a video? And in exchange, we'll give you a $100 gift certificate. Because so people will jump on that because 1, they love our products. And, 2, it's like, it's just on your phone. We make it really easy. We use a platform called Video Ask. And basically it's like a video of me kind of walking them through, asking them questions, and then it kind of stitches it together to this cohesive thing. And we've had a lot of success. I think we're probably getting about, 2 or 3 videos a week right now. So that's pretty good. Just from people recording themselves. So I'm really happy with it.
Did you A/B test or test out what the incentive was? Did you start at $50 and go move? Like, oh,
I did.
Let's go.
I did. I went as high as 150, I think, and then I got too many. I was like, oh, okay, let's not sell the farm here. But
I don't like
$100 was a sweet spot. It was enough for us to continually generate reviews, and I definitely split test it. And Klaviyo makes it really easy. You just do the A/B thing, and it's all automated, and I love it.
Just talk us through like the back end flow, or the link, the apps that are kind of linked together to capture not only your text reviews, but then kind of the follow-up email to get the video ask link to get the video.
Sure. So the customer makes a purchase, and then I think it's 45 days after we mark it as delivered, we have a platform called reviews.io. I don't necessarily endorse them. I find their pricing a bit kind of out to lunch, and I'm kind of looking for a replacement. Looking at judge.me, I think they're $15 a month, but they're great. They don't throttle your review requests or anything like that, which is what I'm finding with reviews.io. So once you reach a certain order volume, they go, okay, it's going to cost more for us to send emails out. And I hate it when companies do that. Yeah. So I'm looking for a new platform. But with reviews.io, you can send an email out 40 days after it's marked as delivered. Customer will open it, look at it. They can decide if they want to do it or not. If they don't, then we send a follow-up email just saying, hey, this is the last reminder, but we're really hoping you can leave a review. And I think they have it so that they can just like click and write the review right in the email. Like they don't actually have to go to our platform to do it. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And so they'll do that. And then if it's a 5-star, we'll send a follow-up email being like, hey, thanks for the 5-star review. And like I just described, we'll ask for the Google, and then we'll ask for the video review. And if they decide to do the video review, it'll take them to a platform called Video Ask. So it's, you probably know Typeform. It's their kind of like sister company. And I really like Typeform, and I really like Video Ask. So we use both in our everyday stuff. And Video Ask is essentially just the software that they use to record their response. It's all in a browser, and
right.
So they'll do that, and then I have our customer service person give them a gift certificate saying thank you and all that stuff, and then we take that content and we don't typically edit it. Like I'll just leave it as is, and then we'll upload it to our other app. There's so many apps. The other app that hosts the video for us and makes it kind of like a shoppable video. So like if you click on one of the videos, it'll have their video on one side, and then I'll have our product on the other side. So you can see what they're talking about and all that sort of stuff. And I can't remember the name of it. But there's some other ones. There's like Tolstoy. If you go to the Shopify app store and you look at shoppable videos, there's a ton of different apps, and just pick one and go for it. I'm sorry, I can't remember the one I use now.
No, that's fine. That's a really good, really the only manual process in that whole thing is at the end of the chain when your customer service rep sends them a gift certificate and then takes the video and uploads it. Everything else is just living in your review app and then sending them a link to that video request. That's amazing. That's a great setup. And that's a beautiful thing about Klaviyo and all these different Shopify apps is that it's like, once it's set up, it's evergreen, and it just keeps running for you in the background and kind of spits out the results for you, which is the name of the game as you scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
A long time ago, it seemed like YouTube was like the reviews that we were getting from folks that kind of in the EDC everyday carry kind of world for YouTube videos. How do you view YouTube now? And like, are you putting ads on YouTube? Are you running specific, are you working with influencers or anything like that on YouTube? Like how do you think about YouTube and how are you approaching it?
So we are looking, okay. So I'll just back up. So a couple of years ago, we had put a lot of effort into sort of the YouTube outreach. So looking for people who I would call micro influencers. So anyone who had like 10,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, who was sort of aligned with the types of products that we make. So everyday carry was an easy one to focus on. And so we'd reach out to a number of those creators and send them product in exchange for an honest review. Like we were very clear, like if you don't like it, whatever, just talk about it. And a lot of creators respected that approach. And we would never pay people to do it. I just don't believe in doing that. I have another experience I can talk about with the paid side of things in a moment. But with the EDC people, they would record it, put it online, and that actually generated a huge amount of traffic for us. One of the EDC creators blew up, like good in a good way. He has like 1 million followers.
It's a good blow up,
and so that generated a lot of buzz. But we caught him in the early stages of growth, and I think that was kind of instrumental. So that's kind of like a good thing. You pick someone who has enough followers that shows that they're on a growth trajectory. But isn't small enough where it's just like a one and done kind of thing. And I think it's great. I think, and generally speaking, like anytime a YouTube person reaches out to us, I don't even care anymore, like how big they are. I'm like, yeah, sure, here you go. Just review it. Doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's cool. But the problem with that approach was that I needed someone to manage all these relationships. I needed someone to do all the outreach, and I couldn't figure out a way to systemize or make it automatic. And I know there's lots of apps and things out there now. All of them I hate. I've tried them all. They're expensive. They're just ridiculous. Like you just need a spreadsheet and an assistant basically to do it properly. And we're exploring ways to do that this year. I haven't gotten to that point yet because there's just so many other things to do, but that is on the agenda. And I do think it's really important. And I think for brands that are just starting out, I think that would be an important way to generate buzz and some interest. but we did explore the paid influencer side. So it was 2 years ago. I had the brilliant idea of hiring TikTok influencers, Instagram influencers to promote our dog leash and collars. And I was approaching people who had little doggy, um, whatever, like famous dogs on
Dogstagram?
like I don't know anything about that world, but there are dogs on there that have like 500,000 followers and things like that. And you would talk to people who are like, okay, yeah, pay me $5,000 to talk about this thing, and it's just like the egos that you deal with and the fact that it's not an authentic review comes across. Like, even if they don't say they're being paid, which they have to anyways, um, it's just a different tone. It's a different thing, and it's just kind of like icky. And the platforms that help you manage these relationships are very expensive. They're very geared towards people looking to get a paycheck. And I don't believe in it. I don't think it's worth anything. Like, our budget was like $10,000 and I think we made 5,000, maybe, I don't know. And it just it was not a good experience. I don't like dealing with people like that. And I don't recommend it. I don't recommend paying anyone to do anything for you, because it's not going to net a return that you think it will. Some people might get lucky and it might turn out well, but I've even heard stories like in e-commerce field. I think Kim Kardashian talked about one of the store owners' products, and they're like, yeah, it didn't generate any sales. So like, if that happens, and can you imagine paying Kim Kardashian? Like, if that was a situation where they reached out and they're like, hey, I'll pay you, $100,000 to talk about this thing, and you didn't get any sales, like, it's crazy. So I'm okay with, reaching out and creating relationships with people who are genuinely interested in your product and are happy to have a product to talk about in a review. But at the same time, just be honest about it. If you don't like it, be honest about it. I don't want this glowing review. I want just like the honest truth. And more often than not, they respect that and they'll help you. But you have to work harder to find those people. That you don't have a marketplace of people looking to get a paycheck. You have to actually dig in the weeds, understand where your customers are watching videos, and approach those types of people. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to systemize that, how we do our video content creation, or our UGC, collecting UGC. I'd love to figure that out, but it's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, I think, going back to your idea of like building the trust and you're building a brand, you're not just doing transactional sales, you're building long-term relationships. You have over 30% return rate. Like, you're building a brand, and to find those influencers and to find I just don't even like the word influencer, to find those people, those online personalities, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, finding the people. I think that what you said, kind of finding the micro, like finding the people that are on their way up and they're working hard to kind of grow their own audience, but also align with your brand and are authentic, and that there's mutual trust built into it. Because if you're building a brand based on trust, quickly you realize that your audience is smart enough to sniff out a foul smell, and when something doesn't feel placed properly, it really backfires, even if it would cost you no money.
It goes back to that review thing, right? You go to a site with just nothing but glowing reviews. It's like, okay, something's weird here. You watch a YouTube video where they're just like #ad or whatever, and it's like, okay, there's no trust, right? It goes back to trust. You need people to trust your brand and your product.
I saw something about like the most effective TikTok ad, and it was like a can of somebody, an influencer in their kitchen, and in the back, still in focus, but in the counter behind them was a Pepsi can, and they were saying like that's the new ad, and nobody knows how much Pepsi paid for that placement, but it was like it was like so subliminal. I was like, oh my god, this is where we're going with it now.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse too.
Oh man, well, Ryan, we've been going on for a long time. I have a lot more questions for you, but I want to be cognizant of your time. You're a busy man running a big empire over there. So I'll try to wrap it up. I have a lot of other questions about e-commerce, but maybe we'll have it round two at one time. There's a lot of information out there. You've talked about a lot of things. I guess trying to narrow it down to like, how can we get really clear so the people listening who are kind of in the early stages of e-commerce or starting their business, like what is your advice for them kind of in the early stage? Like what are the 2, 3, 4, like keep it tight if you can, of like, you know what, in the early stages, focus on this. And once you get these, you know, what are those few things that they can focus on?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to boil it down, that's a heavy one. That's a heavy question.
You don't have to boil. I mean, if you know, just riff, and whatever
Sure.
pops off the top of your head will probably be the right answer.
You know, I talk to a lot of people who are aspiring to run a business or to have a brand or whatever, but a lot of the times it's for the wrong reason. Like I'll run into people who will be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna make a bunch of money doing passive, blah blah blah," and they lead with make a bunch of money, and I think the problem with a lot of brands that fail is that they're in it for the wrong reasons. So for me, when I went into making wallets, it's because I was genuinely like obsessed and enthusiastic and really into making leather goods. And that's what led us to succeed, because I had this passion behind it. I had this, you know, I wanted to be proud of what I was making and things like that. And it wasn't to make money. That just came naturally. So I think my biggest piece of advice to anyone starting a business is to be passionate about what you're doing, because like I mentioned earlier, we were doing 8-hour day jobs and then 8 to 12 hours in the evenings for like a year and a half before we started making money. And you have to have that, drive. Basically, you just have to be passionate about it, and don't start anything just to make money. Like it's just going to fail. And I don't mind saying that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That reminds me, have you heard of there's a cast iron brand called Butter Pat?
No.
Have you heard of this? I've been obsessed with this brand lately. They just got acquired by Yeti for an undisclosed amount of money. And the guy spent like 3 years and $100,000 trying to figure out how to make a cast iron pan. Like they used to make them in the 18th century or the 19th century. He was just obsessed with like, he was tired of like the cheap gimmicky lodge version. And he just spent all this time and money. Anyway, his wife was like, okay, what are you going to do now? So he launched his brand. He's obsessed with cast iron, obviously. Yeah. Spends like 10 or 11 years building this business up, and then, you know, eventually sold it to Yeti. Not that that's the story of everybody's brand, but going back to like, he started with passion. Like he was just fully obsessed with how to make this work, and then continued, you know, every step of the way throughout his business. And it seems like to me, based on what I know of you in this conversation, your focus of being kind of obsessed with the craft of leather work hasn't necessarily changed, but it seems like your passion and focus has really shifted to online marketing and digital marketing and e-commerce sales, which is pretty awesome to see. Like you're a very focused and dedicated person to the craft. So that's pretty awesome.
Thanks. To see. Yeah. It's important, because there's going to be days where you're not making money and you're going to wonder, you know, what am I doing? But if you have something that you're passionate about, you'll know to see it through. And one of the biggest things for me was not listening to other people too. I know that can be kind of dangerous advice, but there's a lot of people who tell you your product or whatever is not going to work it, or you know, make you any money. And I remember people like we were doing this full time for a couple of years, and people were still saying, "Oh, you make money doing that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So you gotta shut those voices out, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think that's something I think about a lot is like, how do you define success for yourself? Because success isn't one size fits all, right? And it's easy to be like, oh, success means X number of dollars, or, you know, car, or whatever success may mean to you, whatever your exit value is going to be. If you get clear early on how you define success for yourself, it could just be the type of life you want to live. Like literally, how many days and hours a week do you want to work? And if that's how you measure success, then awesome. You know, define it for yourself and stick to it, because it's easy to listen to other people or have somebody else's definition of success bolted onto yours. And then that just leads to a lot of headaches and heartaches.
Yeah, I agree.
Ryan, I really appreciate it, your time and your wisdom. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that are going to have questions come up. Where can people find you online, and where can people learn more about you and Popov?
So website popovleather.com, and I encourage anyone with questions and things just to reach out to me via email. Just my name, Ryan, at popovleather.com. Happy. I love talking about this stuff. So, you want to learn how to run ads and hear what's working for us, I'm happy to talk about all that stuff.
Nice. Well, very good. That's very generous of you, and we really appreciate it. So thanks so much for your time and for your input and being willing to share all that you've learned. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please share it with them. If you enjoyed it, take 30 seconds to give us a review on your podcast player. Ratings and reviews go a long way in spreading the word about the show. It takes hours to create an episode and only 30 seconds to leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. To learn more about CORE, visit coreoutdoors.org. That's KORE outdoors.org. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.